Right, good evening. My name is Tanya Hemmings, and I'm going to be interviewing Elizabeth Devlin this evening, who will be speaking to us about the Enneagram. This is a first in a six-part series of discussions taking place each week on a Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Elizabeth will be sharing her insights on why the Enneagram has proven to be such an exciting and essential map to understanding ourselves from a deeper space, and how we experience life through different lenses. Please ask questions and Elizabeth will answer them at the end. It's a 30-minute discussion, and we may take an extra 10 minutes at the end to answer the questions. Without further ado, let's welcome Elizabeth Devlin. Good evening, Elizabeth. How are you?
I'm very, very well, thank you. And how are you, Tanya?
I'm also very well. We have our first viewers online, so this is exciting. I'm glad that you're joining us on a lovely winter's evening to share with us your insights. So, Elizabeth, I believe you first heard of the Enneagram in 1989-1990. That's approximately 31 years ago. It's quite a long time. And that it was part of your curriculum whilst you were training to be a minister. You told me earlier that it had such a profound impact on you that you knew you just had to go deeper. So could you share with the viewers how your journey with the Enneagram began?
Thank you, Tanya. Yes. Well, I first read Helen Palmer's book, Understanding Yourself and Others. And it really did have the most profound impact on me, because when I read it, the others who were in training with me, they realized that they thought differently to me and I to them. And when we discussed it afterwards, I realized that every cell in my body was shaking, was vibrating, and a fire was starting in my belly, right deep down in my belly. And I understand this process. I understand the language of my body. I don't always understand exactly what it's telling me, but I know when something is really, really important and I have to follow. It's got nothing to do with my thought processes. I have to follow where my gut leads me. And in 92, I think it was, or possibly 93, an American teacher came to Port Elizabeth and she presented a weeks-long workshop. And myself, my husband, and my sons attended this. And it had such a profound impact on me to hear my husband and my friends speak about their inner world and their experiences of themselves and their expectations, their thought processes, their intentions, which were often misunderstood. And then when my teenage son spoke up, I thought, my word, now this has to be something from a very deep space. And
Wow.
My younger son was 10, and he found himself immediately on the Enneagram. So that was the beginning. That was the start of a huge, big journey for me.
So tell us then, where did this journey take you? I believe that it sounds really exciting. It sounds quite a major change in how you had dealt with things like this before. So where did this journey then take you? Did you go to America?
Yes, I decided, you know what, when my gut speaks to me, I have to follow. So in 1995 and 96, I went to America, to Palo Alto, right on the west coast of the States. And I even took out my pension to plow this into my new life. And I went to what is called the EPTP, which is the Enneagram Professional Training Program, which is run by Helen Palmer, who is a professor of psychology, and the late David Daniels, professor of psychiatry and at Stanford University.
Okay.
And it was just the most amazing experience. I didn't intend to become a teacher. I wanted to listen, to learn, to inquire, to understand what all these significances were. I wanted to understand the differences of all my family and my friends. The differences in us must have some sort of spiritual significance. And that's what I wanted to explore. I wanted to really deeply inquire into this journey. So yes, it took me to the other side of the world.
So you started your EPTP training, and I believe you've been teaching. Sorry, you've been teaching for well over 25 years, and you're teaching here in Port Elizabeth as well as all over the world. I believe you even taught in the UK and elsewhere.
Yes.
So after your basic training, where to from there?
Well, I I went all over Europe because our training never ends. Helen and David's EPTP, the foundation that they laid, is a 4-part program. So it's an ongoing process. I did a lot of work in the UK. There's a place called Emmaus House in Bristol, which is run by the Laratrate sisters, and I did a lot of work there. I did work in London. I did work with the Jesuits in Ireland. I went all over Europe and attended workshops, and then later presented workshops, because I wanted to understand how people's brains thought differently. I thought there must be a reason for this, how we pick up different things out of 360 degrees of reality. Why or how does this happen? So even when I came back in 95 and started training immediately, started teaching immediately, I still went on for ongoing training.
Okay, so it's been quite a lengthy process.
Yes.
I see you talking. So you're talking about an incredible system, and an incredible, not more than a system actually. It's been used by psychologists. It's been used by business leaders. It's been used by, you've said, various religious traditions,
Yes.
business coaches, people all across the world. Why do you think it is so popular as something that so many people have embraced?
Can I go back a step, Tanya?
Yes, sure. Yes.
I just wanted to share with you something that's left a profound impact on me, and I think it's relevant to everybody. Excuse me. On the first training that I went on to in Palo Alto in California,
Oh, yes.
there were approximately 55 people present.
Okay.
And they were all priests, nuns, psychiatrists, psychologists, and counselors of all orders. And a lot of the time I understood, but there was a lot of the time that I didn't quite understand what they were talking about, because they were talking in a language and terminologies that I actually didn't understand. So at one of the break times, I went and sat in a corner by myself and kind of thought, I have to think this through now. Had I made a wise decision coming halfway across the world, or maybe all the way around the world, and here I am here, I've invested my pension in this, and what is all this about? So David Daniels came up to me and he said, you look like you want to ask a question or you have a query. So I said, yes, David. I said, I'm not quite sure of all the terminology that's being used. It's leaving me a bit confused inside, and I want to get the most that I possibly can out of this. So he looked at me with a query and said, well, what do you do for a living? So I said, I am a hairdresser. So he said, oh, he said, you've probably heard more and listened to more than all these people in the room all together. Well, that kind of settled me quite a lot. And I realized I've listened to approximately 20 or 30 people a day. They speak about their spouses, their partners, their friends, their children, the scrapes their teenagers get into, all the adventures that they have in life. And a hairdresser's job is to listen. Besides
Absolutely.
doing hair, besides that, your job is to listen while somebody unfolds themselves. They kind of want to download onto you. And so I listen and nod and yay and nay and all that. And then I realized what David had told me. Never, ever underestimate the power that you are. Never undervalue what you do. You don't need all sorts of degrees, and they're wonderful to have, yes, but it's not necessary to have all sorts of higher education and higher levels of learning. It's not necessary to be compassionate. You don't have to have a degree to be perceptive. You don't need a degree to have integrity. So the ordinary person in the street, which I've always classed myself as, I was a hairdresser. He gave me a wonderful, wonderful gift. And Helen, in her kindness, I kind of sidled up to Helen and sat next to her. And she explained many, many things to me in terms of meditation and prayer life, in terms of psychology. And she was exceptionally kind. So those first few workshops in the States, Helen and David laid a fire. No, they laid a solid foundation for the fire that was burning within.
Wow.
And that was something that I really came away with, that it's really, really important to me and to everybody, I think.
Yes. So that was the EPTP, that was the nutrition training program, and there,
yes,
as you said, Helen being the psychologist and David being a professional psychiatrist, they really welcomed you, explained things to you, and you were welcomed into a different, it's an amazing system of going within and hearing about how the system works. So
and
Liz,
we spoke. Sorry, Tanya. We spoke, one is taught in the narrative tradition. So that is, you speak internally from your internal space. And I think one of the most powerful things I came away with was the word education, because education is comes from the Latin educare, meaning to lead out, to draw forth from within. And that actually became my life's work, to work with people, to help them draw forth from within. And it's actually on the back of the book that actually is being printed right at this moment. Let us draw forth from within that which has existed since the dawn of time. It's just waiting to be discovered, waiting to be revealed. It's all there. And it's up to us. And this is true education, to draw forth from within that which has existed since the dawn of time.
So let's just put that in a little bit of perspective. So the Enneagram has been used by psychologists, as we've said, business leaders, business coaches, religious traditions, people all across the world. You don't have to have any specific training other than training in the Enneagram to be able to deal with this. Why is it so popular? Why? Could you just give a little bit of insight there?
Okay, well, I think I would like to put as a base, I think we need to work out what my bottom line is. What is my personal belief system?
Yes.
And I firmly believe that we are the most amazing, magnificent beings. We just don't know it.
Okay.
We are incredible beings. We just need to look within and find it. So why is it being used? I think I'd say that once you know where you sit on the Enneagram, you can know and possibly understand the way your mind works, the way it works, how it functions, not what, the way it works. You can understand the likely feelings that will arise, and you can understand how you are inside. And I think I learnt this mostly because we've all got a head center, we've all got a heart center, and we've all got a gut center. So I spent many years with groups, organizing groups, people of the head, people who live by the heart, people who move from the gut. And I learned an enormous amount. But to go back to your question a little bit, and David also said it takes 2 years off the top of therapy. You immediately know where you sit on the Enneagram. You immediately know your blind spots, your biases, what your base intention is, what your difficulties are, because these are paths that have been walked for thousands of years, literally thousands of years. The Enneagram is in ancient scriptures. It's in Hinduism, Christianity, Judaism. It goes across the board, culturally, philosophically, it's everywhere. It might have a different name, but it exists. So it is used.
Wonderful. I love how you say that it comes from the inside. It's a narrative. So the narrative tradition that which you've been trained in, really, then, people can go within and they can really explore themselves instead of, perhaps being put into a little box. Because I've also heard now of the popularization of the Enneagram, that often people kind of feel, well, the question is, am I just going to be put into a little box? How would you respond to this?
This is also a pet little topic of mine, Tanya, because I can resonate with that. I can understand that. However, and this is also on the back of my book, we are not little tin soldiers in little tin boxes. We are not. We are incredible, unique human beings. Every single one of us are totally unique and special. And how would I put this? We all have an amazing capacity for mercy, for compassion, for empathy and love. We all have amazing capacities for perception and insight. And we also have amazing abilities to make justice happen, for integrity, for responsibility, for unity, for creating all these wonderful things. And we are every single one of us, different. But we all fall into a pattern. And that's what I quite like. And these patterns are well known, well walked, and known by everything, including modern psychology. Well known. And I think it's time, just to touch on lockdown for a minute, I think it's time during lockdown, when we've got the time and a little bit of space, hopefully, where we can look inside and go on a deeper journey. Because I think this is needed in society today. We need people to be authentic and to move from a deeper space of awareness. So we're definitely not little tin soldiers in little tin boxes.
Yes. Well, I would definitely agree with you in terms of that, in terms of where we all are in the pandemic. I was even at a discussion today with teachers where exactly that came up. Although, people do experience frustration, they're also learning to kind of take things easier, take things slower. So therefore, it's an opportunity to go within then, like you've said, and really get to know how I tick, and how am I different from, my family members, and different from my friends, as you've mentioned. So just to kind of explore that a little bit more, how could people benefit from an understanding of the Enneagram? I know that we've spoken at quite at length about that, but just to put it into a little bit of a nutshell, so somebody who now might have just tuned in can kind of just get an idea of how they would benefit. And here's Kelly
Okay.
Jane.
I think how I'd answer that would be, we all have 360 degrees of reality, everybody. And out of this 360 degrees, we all download a very different perspective of life. We all see very, very differently. So I perceive differently to you, and you perceive differently to me. So out of this 360 degrees of reality, I will see a fraction of it, you will see a different fraction of it. And I think we are designed, I really believe we are all designed and created for that purpose. Because some of us are designed and created to hold the integrity. Others of us are designed and created to make justice happen. Others are designed to hold the peace. Others are designed to offer compassion and a gentle listening ear. We are all designed and created differently. And I think if I know that for myself, I can come home to that within me. I can say, yes, that is an inherent gift of mine. It's not something I've learned. Because your authentic self, your essence, your true nature of being, by whatever word, is what you're designed to offer to the world. We are not a problem to be solved. We are a gift to be given. And I think we need to remember that. I might have a problem, but I am not a problem. I am a gift. You are a gift. We are all gifts to be given. The gift isn't in me. The gift is me. The gift is you.
So depending on our individual patterns, we will be able to get in touch with what those gifts are. I love the way that you've said that we are not a problem to be solved. We are a gift to be given. So Liz, could you give us an example of this? Because you've spoken about how people perceive life differently. Is there a way that you can give us an example of what it is you're talking about, these patterns that you're talking about?
Okay, this is one of my favorite things, which you've probably heard 1,000 times, Tanya. But I was presenting a workshop to a large company in Port Elizabeth a number of years ago. And I was culturally and traditionally different to the group I was presenting to. And I spoke English, and English was not their first language. So this can often bring up confusion, misunderstandings, which then lead to lack of compassion. So I thought I would start the workshop by introducing myself from an inner space. What did it feel like to live inside of me? How was it? How was my inner world? Which I duly did. And then I asked them to introduce themselves from their inner space. And the first young man who stood up was very calm and very quiet. And his name was Nomalanga, which in Xhosa means born during the day. And Nomalanga had this soft, smooth skin and these dark, dreamy eyes. And he said to me, I have a dragon inside, but she sleeps and she sleeps. So I waited a moment and I said, can you tell us about the dragon, Nomalanga? And he said, yes. She lives in a cave high up in the mountains, but she's very tired and very sleepy. So I said, thank you. What would wake her up? He said, all the harsh words that people say wake her up. And she goes out and she eats and swallows all those harsh words. This is her life. This is what she was born to do. So I said, wow. Wow. I said, does she ever feel full? So he said, yes. When she is full up to here, she breathes fire. She wakes up and she goes out and she scorches the earth and makes it black. And then she becomes sad and sorry, and she goes back to her cave and she sleeps and she sleeps and she sleeps. I said, thank you, Nomalanga. And I thought if people saw or heard Nomalanga when the dragon was awake, they would not know or understand him at all.
Yeah,
So,
but listening to that, you got a very good, you could understand what he was describing from his internal space.
Absolutely.
Which resonates with one of the points on the Enneagram.
Absolutely.
Wow,
and have I got time to tell you another one?
Yes, you may. I'm just reminding people while we're talking, we're on 26 minutes past. Please write some comments, write some questions in the discussion section. We would love to answer them, and Liz, I'm sure, would love to have something to answer at the end. So please do so. Yes, so sorry, Liz, you've got another story?
Okay. And then this rather large gentleman stood up. He was about 6'6" and solid guy. And he said, my name is Tembi, which in Xhosa means trustworthy. And he said, I am the bank. He said, I lend people. I lend myself to people. If you need something, come to me. I can help you. If you need to move house, come to me. I will help you. If you need to take a child to school, bring the forms to me. I will fill them in. If you need to collect your pension, come to me. He said, I love to help people, especially those in need. He said, and I'm very good at it. So all my community, they come to me. He said, and I like to look good in front of my community. And then the clincher was, and I'm more important than the priest, actually.
Interesting.
So I thought, yes. But he said, people think that I'm giving to them. But actually, he said, the bank lends. So he said, when I need a favor, I call in all those I have given to, and I said, I want payback. And payback with interest. You get nothing for nothing. So I wrote down on a piece of paper where he sat on the Enneagram. It was fascinating.
I think what I'm really hearing from what you're saying, Liz, and we've got a question, so I'm going to pop it on now. But from what I'm hearing, you're saying it's really, the Enneagram cuts across all cultures, all creeds. And so that's fascinating, because you're not, as you said, you're not being put into a little box. Those people were actually exploring their inner world. You weren't saying this is how you feel. They were exploring it in terms of the Enneagram. I'm going to put on a comment here. This is Peter James. I think it's Zing. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing correctly, Peter. He says, I love the Enneagram. I agree with the patterns and how it is not a box, merely a guide. If we understand the Enneagram, can this aid us in relationships, be it friendships, work relationships, etc.? And also the essence or key desire for finding purpose. Sorry, I forgot most of the terminology. So I don't know if you can answer what he's saying there, Liz. He's just asking in terms of relationships.
Most definitely.
Understand that.
Most definitely, Peter.
And he's also asking a deeper question there in terms of essence or finding purpose. That's a very interesting question.
Well, I'll answer the first part first. You remember the second, because I'm over 70 now. I don't always remember all the questions. The first question.
Power supply in. I'm afraid I didn't put my power supply in. Hold on.
Okay.
Carry on.
Okay. To answer that, yes, my husband lives in his head and I live in my gut. Okay. And I understand that it takes him a long, long time to think through everything, to work it out in his head, rationalize it and theorize about it. Meanwhile, I've probably just done it. So he can understand me much better and I can understand him. And I also have a heart-based son. And I know that life is about relationships for him. And so I enter a relationship with him. And I know what he needs and he knows what I need. So yes, it's very, very powerful in relationships, because once you know where you come from and your blind spots and the hurdles that I have to overcome, it's huge in relationships, yes. And then the deeper question about essence was, yes, tell me again.
And also the essence or key desire for finding purpose. Can it help with finding purpose and I would guess meaning?
Most definitely. There we go. Yes, and also the essence or key desire. Absolutely, I would say so, 100%. Because again, where you sit on the Enneagram offers you, this is what you were born to do. This is your greatest gift. And it's not something you have or something you need to cultivate. It's actually who you are. So it actually can take you straight to your greatest gift and your true purpose in life. But not forgetting that your true purpose can flow through anywhere, any profession. It doesn't mean that you can't do certain things just because you're a certain point. Anybody can do anything, put it that way. But yes, you can definitely find your true purpose for sure.
Thanks, Liz. You're a little bit out of focus. I don't know if that might be the internet. Maybe that we're having a bit of a glitch on the internet. Are you
okay?
I hope it'll come better. But anyway, I'm just going to put on the next question. We just over half past, 25 to. I hope everybody is still patient with us for maybe a few more minutes, because we've got 2 more questions. John Barrow says, totally agree, one has to give to receive. But why don't we all think like that? Okay, so he might have been asking about that story that you spoke about, that second story. I'm guessing that's what John's asking about. One has to.
Why don't we all think like that? Because we all think differently, John. Nobody thinks exactly the same as anybody else. I mean, everybody in the world, the same as we all have a unique fingerprint We all have a unique thought pattern. We are all uniquely different, and that giving and the receiving could come from your heart space. And maybe you give a lot and wonder why others don't. And so listen in, because we'll definitely go further there in the next couple of weeks.
Great.
But nobody thinks exactly the same as anybody else. Nobody.
Okay, we've got one more question, and then I thought, Liz, it would be nice if you could just say what we're going to be talking about next week. But let's just one more question, and we promise not to go on for too much longer, maybe another 5 minutes. So Melita, I think it was Melita, how valuable is it in recognizing our children's path in life? That's a good question.
Melita. I would say it can be extremely helpful. Extremely helpful, as long as we don't get lost in trying to direct them too much or guide them too much. For me, I think it's extremely important to support our children, to help them find themselves, not to mold them in my way of thinking or necessarily my religion or my culture. I don't like the too much molding thing. I think we need to, again, education, to draw forth from within. It was extremely valuable for me to understand where my sons sat on the Enneagram, because I could understand the questions they asked, and I understood the intensity or lack of it that they needed. So it's very, very helpful to support that child or teenager where they are. So thank you for that. And John said something about the second story.
Oh, he was just confirming that my assumption was correct. The question he was asking about, don't we all give and receive, or why don't we all do that? He was saying it came from that second story, but you answered him perfectly.
Okay. Yes, okay, thank you.
The heart point. I believe that the internet is a challenge on all devices, so it's not just us. So it's
good.
what it is. So there are no more questions at the moment. We've got maybe about 3 minutes to go, Liz, before we tune out for tonight. Could you give us a taster of what it is you're going to be sharing with us next week, and possibly
next week?
Yes, and you could maybe even just give us a little bit of an inkling about the future weeks.
Okay, I think next week we'll talk about the Enneagram as, firstly, the Enneagram as an arcanum, as a symbol, and as a map. I'm going to speak about the external map of the world and the Enneagram as the arcanum and the internal map. Okay. And then the following week, I will speak about the brain, the heart, and the gut as organs of perception. We all have a head, we all have heart, and we all have a gut, but some of us use the head more than the heart, and some of us use the gut more than the head, and every combination thereof. So that will be would that be the third week? The third week. Then the fourth week, I'll speak about the focus of attention of each point. Because we each have, depending where you sit on the Enneagram, we each have a specific focus of attention. And that in itself offers us the gift. So I want to, and this may be for Peter James, this will explain to us the gift that we are, the gift that we bring to the world. Okay. And then, have I missed one out? Then I'm going to touch on stress and secure, because you actually know when you're under a lot of stress, we all think differently. Mm-hmm. We all feel differently when we're under a lot of stress, and we all respond very differently when we're under an enormous amount of stress. And then when we're feeling secure and relationships are on track and finances are in order and jobs doing okay, then yes, then we think differently again. But we always come home to our primary point. And then the last week, I'm going to touch on our instincts, which aren't about the Enneagram per se, but our instincts are the avenue through which our Enneagram point can move into the world. So our instincts are very, very important. So I think that covers the 6 weeks, Tanya.
I think that basically covers it, yes. So I hope you've enjoyed this evening. I hope you've enjoyed listening to Liz, who one of her greatest fortes is telling stories and giving us really beautiful ways of understanding ourselves and others. So I'm excited to be sharing these next 6 weeks with you, Liz, and I'm hoping that people will learn something about the Enneagram over this time and maybe think about exploring it further. So thank you very much. See you next Thursday at 7 p.m.
Thank you.
And continue to ask questions. You can always just post questions in the discussion as we go along during the week. And then when we tune in for the next session, we can answer those questions when we come to the next session. So thank you, Liz. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Tanya.
Enjoy the rest of your evening. And thank you, everybody who's tuned in and asked questions and expressed support. Thank you.
Good night.
Okay. Good night. Bye.
Bye.